our culture is so much focused on the what and less on the how. And I think it's not just what you accomplish, but really also how you accomplish it. It changes the flavor.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good afternoon, Mark Ainley. Previously, episode 1119 of the 12-minute Converse podcast, which happened 2 years, 11 months, 26 days, 17 hours, and 30 minutes ago. However,
Wow.
we got the opportunity to meet Mark, my wife, and I, a year and 6 months, 23 days, 17 hours, and 30 minutes after at Stanley Park in Canada on the west side. Mark, my friend, that was then. This is now. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I am excellent. Wow. Well, when we first spoke, I always will refer to that picture, right? Your bio picture that you sent us is so captivating. Who chose that shirt, actually?
It was me. I mean, I've always been colorful, and I think that I came across this Spanish clothing line, Desigual, that they changed their style a little bit, but they had these really colorful, bright, playful shirts, and I think that our world, we've lost some of that playfulness. We've lost a lot of the color, and you think about as kids, kids like to color outside the lines, and then I think we lose some of our freedom and our spontaneity when we're told, no, you have to color within the lines and you have to do it this way. And so I really enjoyed wearing that clothing, which I think is really kind of like coloring outside the lines, which is in a sense what it is that I try to encourage people to do with their lives and with their homes, as they look at their homes as a reflection of their lives, to not just do things in a linear, boxy, traditionally correct way, but to really have something that speaks to them and expresses them.
It would be great for you to do a podcast. You can stand on your own, my friend. Oh, really?
Thank you.
Yeah.
A few people have been telling me that. One of the things that I'm coming into, like our conversations have brought up as well, and what you're so good at getting people to do is sharing. And I think that everybody does want to share to some extent, and that's one of the pieces around social media that has people getting so involved with, expressing themselves. Because quite often, everybody's been shut down at some point in their lives, in school or from family or social networks and so on. So I'm waking up more to the fact that I probably do need to be doing some more verbal sharing. I love writing and I love doing it that way, but I think the spoken word is it's definitely powerful, isn't it?
It is, and it's one thing wanting to do it and not be good at it. It's another thing when you're good at it and not wanting to do it, right? So
Yeah, our mutual friend Sones, who's the one who introduced us,
yes.
She's the one who first convinced me to train people as Feng Shui consultants. She was my first student, and she read my articles and she wrote to me and she said, "You're my teacher. I want to come to Canada and I want to study with you." And I didn't expect it. And she was in Japan at the time and she flew to Canada to train with me, but she saw that. And I think this is one of the gifts. This is why we need other people, because other people can help us to recognize things that we can't recognize ourselves, whether it's a positive potential or whether it's something that's a positive potential that's misaligned, which we can see as, a problem or a challenge. But I think it's just a matter of, that feedback can help us get back on track.
And of course you do that for a living, right? Like you're coming into spaces and creating that opportunity for others. It's not just moving furniture. It's aligning the spaces with who they are, isn't it?
That's it. I mean, when we tend to have a very rational view of the world and reality, from that coloring within the lines, so to speak. And, what I'm going in and looking at the spaces from the perspective of is that everything in your home reflects an element of yourself because you've chosen it and you're living there and it's reflecting something back to you on a subliminal level. And so I do go in a lot and really help people realign with who it is that they are, naming what it is that I'm seeing and the fact that this potential could play out a little bit better if you did this instead. And, I think there's a challenge in our culture that, when somebody's skilled at something, they assume that they have no problems or they have no issues or anything like that. I need feedback as well. What you're telling me is really insightful and helpful for me because you've got a lot of experience with this. So we do need to choose who we listen to, but we need to listen to others.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing my own home, I actually need the help of others because we all have our blind spots. So I have another feng shui consultant come in and help me with my home because there's going to be things I don't see because in the same way that, the Zen philosopher Alan Watts said, you can't look into your own eyes without a mirror, you can't bite your own teeth. There's all of these things that there's always a blind spot to ourselves. And so this is why I think we need other people and we need to connect on a deeper level.
I love the synchronicity of your episode numbers, right? And just aligning with that reflection model, right? So when we did first have the conversation, it was 1119, and then we had 212, and I just see the 212 looking at the number now, the one being the mirror, right? But the two reflects directly to itself.
Yeah.
How often have you seen working with individuals where the person they want to be no way aligns with who they are? Is that identifiable? So they want something because it seems as though they're looking into the mirror and not seeing themselves.
Oh, it happens a lot. I mean, I think everybody's got this to some extent. It's just a matter of degree, I think, for most people. Yeah, it's startling how I think we can all find people who are, we can very clearly say, everybody would say, wow, she's so beautiful or he's so good looking or something, and they don't necessarily see that themselves. And the same for any skill or talent. So I've had that happen a lot where people are not seeing their potential.
Well, I'm fascinated because if you are working with someone who is seeing something that they would like to be, and then you have to expand or be an extension of that by helping them with their space. How do you work with that?
There's a lot of communication and gentleness with that. I think that, just by virtue of there's a process I go through with the consultations. We discuss their goals and what it is that they want before the session or at the beginning of the session. But when we're going through, because of how feng shui works, because of that lens that I'm looking through, in a sense, with how I interpret what it is I'm observing, I'm communicating generally the mismatch that, you're saying you want this, but this is what I'm seeing over here. And so this is a possible consequence. If you have this like this instead of like that, you might be experiencing X, Y, or Z, and you really want to have more A, B, or C. And let's see if we can make a change. So it's really just the naming of what's there first. And I think this is one of the things that our culture does have a problem with. And when I say problem, I don't like to even use the word problem, a challenge. It becomes a problem when we don't address it, though.
So do you remain gentle, all the time with it?
I certainly do. I mean, I have to. I try. And in my personal life, it doesn't mean it's always going to come out as gracefully as I would like. I'm human. But certainly when I'm working, it's a very distinct, concerted effort that, this person has let me into their space. There's nothing really, I think, more intimate in going into a home environment when you have the kind of awareness or observation skills that I have and that I've trained in. And so it's of paramount importance to me to respect that dynamic and their willingness to change. And the fact of the matter is that gentleness opens up more doors. It actually allows more contact, more awakeness than it does to go in forcefully and directly. Now, sometimes when the energy is stagnant, if there's a lot of clutter, things have been there, it doesn't mean I'm going to be forceful verbally, but sometimes we need to be, how we work with the space needs to be a little bit more on a bigger scale. We might need to open the windows, or we might need to move a big piece of furniture right away. We need to do something to really change the atmosphere right away because there's been so much settling down, and things being fixed for a long time. But, I was just saying to another consultant yesterday that, quite often people really want big changes. But, a big change, a piano falling on your head is a big change. It's not necessarily what you want. You might want to actually, you make space in the living room and you gently wheel the piano into the room and have it in position. So things can take time. And our change processes can take time. Sometimes they happen quickly, sometimes they happen more slowly. But I think gentleness is the way. And when we look at water, because water is
it's your go-to, right?
That's my go-to for how energy flows.
Yes.
The quality of water is a non-dual quality of gentle persistence. So when you think about how water flows, it's gentle because it will go up and it meets the riverbanks and it decides where to go and it takes the path of least resistance, but it's persistent because it keeps flowing unless it's really, really blocked. So that quality of persistence, where in our culture, generally persistence is seen as aggressive, but doing that gently, and gentle not being passive, and it doesn't mean you're not persistent. I think it's an important combination to be able to have and to be able to embody.
I totally agree. I think the other G word that comes about there is grace. Having that grace, right? And it really opens a space. I'm rhyming here now, right? And without any trace, right? And we're going, yeah. But yeah, it then helps with the ending taste, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is really important. Our culture is so much focused on the what and less on the how. And I think, it's not just what you accomplish, but really also how you accomplish it. It changes the flavor. So not just what you cook, but how you cook, and not just what you say, but how you say it. And I think that this is an important factor to consider. And so what you're saying about grace is definitely, that definitely aligns for me.
Love it. Amazing audience. Again, you're hearing it live from Mark Ainley. Mark, where's the best place for that person that needs your services to connect to you?
I have my feng shui website is senseofspace.com. I have another page with that name on Facebook. And that's, I think, probably the best way. I also have markainley.com, which collects my sort of various websites. I also do some work in the classical music field, so it sort of combines my feng shui and that one. But for feng shui services and to read a little bit more about some of the philosophies we've been talking about here, senseofspace.com.
Sense of Space. Well, my friend, it's a great pleasure, again, on this third time around, having a conversation with you, Mark. I look forward, again, to meeting up and seeing how you have evolved. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I think just really saying hello to where you are and giving yourself a pat on the back for being where you are without any of it being a problem.
Mark Ainley, again, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.